We're going to start off forms part 2 with just a quick reiteration of how do we build a form in React. So first things first, what elements do I need to make a form? Form, at least one input, which will default to type text, but I'll just write it out here. And a button that may say anything in it, but I'm going to say submit. And our form is done. So using the random name, Aaron, what's something I'm going to have to add to this form? Inputs, what have you? What else do I need to add to this? Let's start with the input. What else does this input need for me to build this form?
Input's going to need 3 things.
Cool. What are those 3 things?
Going to need a name.
Cool. We won't worry about what it is yet, but it will.
Name, value, and function.
Sweet. Okay. And my typical thing with forms is I don't like these on the same line because they get long. So I'll break them over. Okay. Next here, Chris, what would the name be if this was an input for, let's say, a first name? What would the name be, and where else would I have to write that exact title as well? If this input was for something like a first name. Cool. And where else would I have to write that now? I've got to add this somewhere. I think I heard it. Yeah, the name has to match the piece of state it's going to be tracking. So if we have an input name first name, we're going to have a state entry called first name, the exact same syntax. Cool. Elizabeth, what would the value of this input be? What value is it supposed to be pointing at? Cool, who can help? It's a little interesting because this is tied to state, but where is value tied? It's also tied to that piece of state. So the name is what it's called in state, the value is what it's equal to in state, and so we set it equal to that. Cool, the last one, on change, Afame, what would be the method that we give on change? Known as like a handler method. So it won't be state, it will be a method we need to write in here somewhere. But what would it be called if it's going to be handling an on change? Yes. Handle. Oh, well, we've added the event here. But conventionally, what do we call it? If this is an on change, what would the handler be called? Anybody? Yeah, we want to stick to a convention just so it's easier to read. So on change, we're going to call a method called handle change to handle the on change. So we need to write that method for it. And I'm going to use the letter E instead of the word event. Today's the day I make that switch. Oh, dang. E is event. E event. We're making progress. All right, well, I'm going to add one more input to this form before we build our on change. And this one's going to be for last name. So I need to go add that to state. And my handle change has to be able to handle both of these. Whichever one I'm typing is the one that needs to be updated, and it needs to leave the other one alone. So Charles, how would I affect that change in my handle change? How do I update the appropriate field dynamically? Good start. And what are we updating? We are, but how do we know which one we're updating? Because here I can't hard code first name, because then if I'm typing in last name, I'll still be updating the first name. So this has to be dynamic somehow. I can't hard code it. Something in the event that lets us know which one's being typed in. Yes, the event target name, but it doesn't like the syntax. Why? Yeah, it needs the brackets around it. So it's like not literally e.target.name. Don't look for something in my state that's called this. Look for something in state that is called whatever this represents, which will represent either first name or last name. And then how do we get the value of the input that's being typed in? Yeah, cool. So if I'm typing in first name, update its value. If I'm typing in last name, update its value. And that's what this is saying here. It'll update the right piece of state. Nice. Hannah, I'm missing a method. What other method does this need? A handle submit. Okay. Wild idea. And where am I going to put the event listener that fires this? On the form, which will be a on animation end capture. No, on submit. This dot handle submit. All right, Hannah, if you want to take this a step further, how do I build out this handle submit to save the first name and the last name as objects in state so I can map them out? Yes, Hannah, I would. Cool, so we prevented default. So at this point, handle change has made sure that everything the user's typing is saved somewhere so that when handle submit occurs, I can just reference where I'm saving it to know what they typed. Now, where in my class does this information get saved? Yeah, so this right now will have the values they gave me, and I need to save them as an object in state and then clear these out. This is tricky. So for sure, I'll add this in. We'll need an array of some sort. And we'd like to add both of these as an object into here. Yeah, let's start off with a variable. Maybe new person. What data type would this be? Object. We want to save both of these in one place. So, and maybe they'll have a first name and a last name. But how do we get the values that these should be assigned to? Yeah, this state, first name, and this dot state dot last name. Right, because handle change at this point in time, if they click submit first thing and they go to the site, sure, these will be empty, but that's the user's fault. We'll deal with those side cases later. But in a perfect world, they have typed everything in. So handle change is updated state at this point, and our state looks something like this. So we're saying create a new object and save Harry as the first name of that object and Potter as the last name of that object. So now that that's done, we can set state and clear these two inputs and then save this object in the array. So clearing inputs first or last, either works. And then my array, and all of this put the new person in the array. Am I done? What have I done here? Am I ever going to be able to save more than one object in this array? Yeah, there's a problem coming. Let's remember what this problem is and why we have to do it a different way to make it work. But I think you may be seeing what's happening. So if we open this up and go to React, our state array starts off empty. So let's give it a first and last name. We see our handle change is working fine. We hit submit, they get cleared, and our object was added to the array. Perfect. So next name. Hit enter, and my array is still 1. Harry Potter is gone. What line of code just erased Harry Potter? Yeah, we're setting state. We're saying, hey, set state, make array, a new array with the new person. It doesn't say anything about if there were any people in there before, keep them. This is saying just update this to be a new array. Don't care about what was there before. We need some previous state. We need to be able to look at what this looked like before this update occurs. Now with prev state added in, how do I affect this array to make sure we have everything from the previous array? Prev state. Yeah, this is getting closer, but what part of prev state do we want to maintain? Because prev state right now is this. I don't want all of this in my array. Yeah, so give me the previous state array and then add the new person to it. But now what I've created right now, our this.state.array will look like this. We've added an array into a new array and then added an object to it. So we'll have an array of objects inside of an array that has some objects. And I don't want this effect, right? I don't want a nested array. I just want an array of objects. So how do I dump the contents of this box into the new box? Yeah, spread it in. Now we have this effect. Now when we update, let's look at our array again, and then we'll be ready for the next inputs. Harry Potter, enter. He is the first object. Ron Weasley, enter. He is the second object. It's maintaining the old ones and adding to it. Before we move to the new input types, any questions on this functionality? This is going to look a little strange, and this is going to look a little strange for another couple days. Just highlight what's happening.
The one that you just highlighted.
This right here? Yes. So when an event occurs anywhere in JavaScript, every function that handles that event, such as a change event being handled by this, you receive an event object. The event object will always have an e.target. And what is the e.target always? It'll be the input if the event was in an input, but what if the event was a click event on a div? What would the event target be? The div. It's wherever the event occurred. So since this input has the on change, when I type into it, this is the event.target, and the event.target has a .name, a .value, a .on change, and a .type. So I'm saying wherever this occurred, update the piece of state that references the event target's name. So update first name to be whatever I'm typing in that input, that target. And this will allow me to type in any of these because the event target.name and the event target.value will differ depending on which one I'm typing. Now, if you like destructuring more, we can destructure. We can say out of the event target, give me the name and the value. And now inside of our set state, we just have to say update the name to be the value. You can do that as well, but it's doing the same thing. Yeah, the brackets. Let's look at that in Replit for just a sec. Bracket notation is For some reason, for everybody, it's a thing. Like dot notation, you pick it up in a week. Bracket notation, you got to just keep being reminded about it. Because for some reason, you learn about it, you get it, and then it's gone again. So let's keep hitting bracket notation. So let's start off with this. I have a person object, name Harry, age 20. If I wanted to console log Harry, what could I write in here using dot notation? Person dot name. If I'm using bracket notation though, it would be person what? Bracket, the string name. These are doing the same thing. We'll get Harry. Well, let's say instead of putting the string here, I had a variable called my var maybe, and it's set equal to the string name. Well, instead of putting the string name in these brackets to index name, I could put the variable in here, my var, that references the string name, and it's going to work the same way. Harry. Because what does my var evaluate to? Name, which is the exact same thing as saying person.name. So in React, where we say this is going to evaluate to either the string right now, first name, or the string last name. So really we're saying set state to last name. And since that's in state, it will know what to update. So this is just evaluating to one of the two names we have on one of our two inputs. So either first name or last name. And that's why the name absolutely has to match the piece of state it should be updating so that our handle change can do it dynamically. If we didn't do it with names, we'd have to write a handle change for every input. And in fact, if you code in React Native, you have to do that. They don't give you the event target name. You have to make different handle changes. But React.js is really nice with this because JavaScript has the event object to allow you to do this. Bracket notation, this is the exact same as name, but it's dynamic. I can put variables in here.
How is my var equal name? Everything the same.
Because what is my var? My var is no different than typing the string name. Because my var is the string name. Well, it's the same thing as saying person.name. You say it outside the object to reference it. This is just an alternative syntax that does the exact same thing. It says go look for a key called name and give me the value, Harry.
Yeah, get that.
Cool, so when I use a variable, my var, what is my var to JavaScript? It's name. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Let's do this. I mean, there's no way around it. It is a bit hard to look at at first. The reason I'm doing this is just to show that we can use a variable in place of the string because a variable just references the data we're using. So instead of typing in the string first name, I can put a variable in that is equal to that to index the object the same way. And the reason why I'm storing it in a variable first to show this effect is because it's exactly what we're doing here. Event.target.name is just a variable that represents either the string first name or the string last name. So this will evaluate to one of those two. And then that piece of state is what's getting updated. So this variable and this object have no relationship, if that's what you're saying. Yeah, these are two separate pieces of data. I'm just using this to say, you know, I can put a variable in these brackets other than a string and it will still work the same way. Which is just like if we did event.target.name is the variable form of either first name or last name, but that's what it's actually doing.
I finally get it. So the colon is setting that key to the value.
Yeah. We just have to use the brackets so that the key is dynamic.
Accessing that key and setting it.
Yeah, it just has to know which one are we typing in. And this is the easiest way to do it.
But I still just don't understand over there in your output how it correlates. That's not that variable is not just a string. Variable.
This variable is
represents that key.
It doesn't. It doesn't represent the key at all. This variable and this object have no relation to one another.
Then how does the string first name know that it's?
It doesn't. I'm saying access person.firstname, and this would be saying access person.firstname. Well, another way to say first name in here is to have a variable that's equal to that string. But notice if I put the variable in here, my var, this will work because this will evaluate to grab person.firstname because that's what this is. But if this was first names and I hit run, I get an undefined because there is no first names in here. And now I'm getting it because I changed it to names. So the variable has no relation, just like the event target.name has no relation to state, but it represents the string matches the piece of state we want to update and just happens to work that way. It's like first name, it looks at state like, oh yeah, we do have that. Let's update that to the value. But yeah, again, no relation. These have no idea about each other. It's just when we use them this way, we can put a variable in brackets. We don't have to hard code what key we're looking for.
First name is just a location.
Yeah, first name's a location. It says search this object for a first name. If it's there, give me the value. If it's not, give me undefined.
So this is our good console log for the first name.
Right. Then it's going to console log the array with the word first name in it. And if I put my var in here and run it, it's going to an array with first name in it. Same thing. The variable just represents the string, which is the same as typing the string in directly. I know this is like
Making a nested object in the person would show the address.
You're saying like it's like let's add another object with a street of 1, 2, 3. If I wanted to console log the street, I could say person.address.street, or I could say person bracket address bracket street. This notation and this notation right now are doing the exact same thing. But let's say I had a variable street that's just equal to the string street, and a variable address that's equal to the string address. These have no idea about each other. But because this represents the string, I can use the variable in its place. And it's going to work the same way. Let's keep reminding ourselves on this because this is the only way to create an object from nothing. So we'll get to like dynamically creating objects. But this is a little side note. I think it was important though. I'm glad we covered it and it's recorded so we can visit it if we need to again. Let's look at the other input types for a few minutes here. We'll look at the first two, take a break, and then look at the last couple. The first one we want to tackle though is checkboxes because that is the only one that's going to change how we're doing things. What does a checkbox have? It doesn't have an event target dot value. How do we know whether a checkbox is checked or not? Dot checked. Yeah, each checkbox. So like let's say when I make my input, input, the type would be checkbox, but it wouldn't get a value. It would get a check property. That would be tied to this dot state dot whatever the name is. So what property should we add to this? What's a good Boolean property? Is good wizard true? So his checkbox should default to be checked because he is a good wizard. Y'all good wizard. What's that? Is muggle? That might be better, yeah. Is muggle false? So let's keep it unchecked by default. Is muggle false? And so now the check property, instead of the value property, we're going to use the check property and say this.state.is muggle. But it still needs a name and it still needs an on change. So name, what would the name be for this? Which one? Is muggle. Why is muggle? Well, that's the piece of state we'd like to update if this thing is clicked in. So
You don't have to put it equals true because it's just already
right. It is either true or false. And then on change is the same, so this dot handle change. But this is going to break our handle change. Why will this break our handle change? When I check the checkbox. Value doesn't exist. So I go to my React DevTools hoping for my application to work. Is muggle, and I click this, and it turns to on and then disappears. And then I can never uncheck it. And then if I'm typing in these, still kind of works, but my checkbox is broken. It's because, what did I change my muggle data type to? It starts off as a Boolean, but what does it change to when I click the box? One more time, you'll see it here. It's been changed to a string. It can no longer toggle. So my handle change, I need to check first. What is the type of the input I'm typing in? If it's a checkbox, value doesn't exist, so don't use it. So here is the elegant way to do that. Instead of just referencing the event target directly in the set state, we'll figure out what we need to update first. So we'll say the value that we want to update to should be, and we can use a ternary statement. We can see, is the event.target.type a checkbox? If so, don't save the event target value, save the event target checked. But if it's not a checkbox, then it's one of the other input types, and all of those other input types have a dot value. So then in that case, use the event target dot value. So value will be evaluated before it's set state here, and we save it. Saying the value should be, if it's checkbox, it should be true or false. If it's not a checkbox, it should be a string of some sort. And then we update state with the appropriate target name. Now with our set state on the checkbox, wrong one, right one. Here's our ismuggle. It can toggle off and on. But these still work as well because we're checking, hey, is this event target a checkbox? No, then grab its value. But this is a checkbox, so grab its dot checked property. Here and here. Fortunately, that is all we'll have to do to our handle change. From here on, I could put 100 other inputs of all different types into my form, and my handle change could handle all of them. So this is the only change we have to make, and it's only if we're using checkboxes. What's that? Oh, how do we save it? So instead of an array of just first name, last name, yeah, we'd say then you also have an is muggle status we'd like to save, which will be this dot state dot is muggle. We're just going to add it to the object, and now it's already being put into the array. But yeah, I guess the next step would be to map this out so we could see it as we're adding them. But yeah, I'm just making sure that, hey, if I'm keeping track of another property, whatever they selected, I'll add that to the object I'm saving when they hit submit. And I'll throw that into the array. Yeah, that's a lot.